Last time on Dude, You Haven't Played This Game.
Let's continue with The Legend of Zelda on the NES.
Wait a minute, what's going on here?
Trying to review Zelda, huh? Not on my watch. But you can call me the Analog Kid. If you want me to unhack your game, you'll need to stop me. From the inside. Come find me if you dare.
Yes! Found you!
Yes, it appears you have. Now, tremble with terror. You are finished.
And now, the final battle begins.
Was something supposed to happen to you when you double-click that mouse from, 1995?
Are you ready for your final journey?
Really? Are you gonna quote Sigma's lines from Mega Man X4, or are you actually gonna do something?
Prepare to become space dust.
We get it.
Aha! Prepare for the worst thing you'll ever see on the internet. Introducing...
Oh, hi there. I'm Scarlett Johansson.
What? Exit the simulation without logging into my Angel Fire account, but my Juno password has been changed. If I could just get into the mainframe and...
Hey, hello, excuse me.
What?
That's not how you treat a celebrity, especially one who's just recently starred in the criminally underappreciated Ghost in the Shell live-action movie, now in theaters.
I mean, the movie was actually pretty good, aside from some...
Oh, is this... Dude, you haven't watched that movie?
What? No.
Sounds like you better get to the next review then. Giddy up!
Ugh, well, while I try to figure out how to get into my Netscape browser, here's Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex on the PlayStation 2. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex was developed by Kavia, later known for their work on the original Nier game, as well as Bullet Witch. Adapting one of the most critically acclaimed anime series into a video game would present Kavia quite the challenge. After all, the previous title we discussed last episode blurred the lines between mech combat and arcade-style gameplay. This time around, we have a game based on the anime series of the same name, Standalone Complex. Does it offer the same experience as the previous title? No, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Featuring an all-new plot with the same voice actors as the series, the game kind of lost me regarding the plot. Taking place during the year 2030, and in between the first and second seasons of Standalone Complex, you take on the role of the Section 9 members Major Motoko Kusanagi and Bato, instead of the Fuchikoma tanks like in the last game. In fact, the tanks have been renamed to their more appropriate Tachikoma name, just like in the anime series. The cast does an awesome job with nearly every original Standalone Complex actor returning to voice their respective roles. In my opinion, these are the best actors for these characters, with Mary Elizabeth McGlynn as the Major and Richard Epcar returning as Bato. While the plot is a bit convoluted, I still comprehended the basics of it, so here's what I do know about the plot. Section 9 discovers a vat of micro-machine rice. The rice is being used in some kind of terrorist attack, as it's laced with a suicide virus. You'll be spending time infiltrating locations like shipping docks, parking garages, a high-rise dam, as well as a place called the TAR building. While the game for the PlayStation 1 was a much more straightforward premise with a simple defeat the bad guys notion, Standalone Complex is similar to the show of the same name in that the plot is, no pun intended, complex. There's lots of twists and turns throughout the experience that always entertain me while playing, so I don't want to give too much away, but it was rooted pretty deep in the action. There's a ton of fast-paced, highly technical dialogue that gives the combat a more engaging story experience while fighting. though I must admit it's a bit distracting to try to pay attention when there's heavy fire being taken. A lot of these dialogue bits will involve hacking into certain computer terminals where you'll hear pieces of dialogue between the character you're playing as and other members of Section 9. Some of the technical terms fly by so fast that the developers decided to include a cheat sheet guide in the menu so you could understand if you missed or skipped dialogue. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about an intelligent story experience, but I don't know, when it comes to gaming, I like to turn my brain off for a bit. So if you're a fan of the show, you may want to try repetitive playthroughs of this one. Interestingly enough, the game encourages that, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk control. In the PlayStation 2 era, developers were making improvements to make sure that characters were easier to control. Now, I'm not speaking for every game here, but it was kind of the last generation of gaming where bad control reared its ugly head. Standalone Complex gets a lot correct, but there are still some flashbacks to the days where you were fighting the controls more than the enemies. When it comes to controlling Motoko and Bato, things are mostly pretty solid, albeit a bit constricting. Using the left analog stick to move and the right to rotate the camera, your face buttons will always stay the same, with X being used for hacking or action tasks like interacting with computers. Circle is used for picking up weapons, triangle alternates main weapons, and square allows you to cycle through your sub-attacks. Your main attack and sub-attack, as well as jump and climb controls, are all performed using the shoulder buttons. While this is certainly a unique control scheme, ultimately it fails for allowing full customization on the shoulder buttons, but not the face buttons, meaning the X, square, triangle, and circle buttons. I tried out a number of different options for these shoulder buttons, and the one scheme I was most comfortable with involved L2 being jump, L1 being climb, R2 being my main attack, and R1 for a sub-attack. Once I got used to it, I felt a bit better about it, but there was a huge learning curve with one particular type of action, the jumping mechanics.
There's gotta be some way to disable this geodome and hack the cyberlink to bypass the...
Excuse me?
Yes, Scarlett Johansson.
Actually, it's Scarlett Johansson.
I'm not saying that. What? What?
What are you babbling about? Are you just using random 90s computer lingo to make it sound like you know what you're doing?
What? Pfft, no.
Gotcha!
Jumping with the major is initially frustrating and time-consuming. Take, for example, the first mission. There's a big focus on the major's missions in particular to explore the territory, including getting to higher ground, whereas Bato's levels are more straightforward third-person shooting. Vertically speaking, the game still feels a bit empty, despite occasionally finding some ammo or sub-weapons like grenades. Major has what I'd like to call, I guess, a 3-point jump. When jumping against a wall, if you press the jump button again, it will bounce Major to another wall, but the third jump pushes her backwards. The developers really wanted you to use wall jumping to your advantage to reach new heights, but this awkward 3-point jump tested my patience more than it enticed me to explore. Sometimes you have no choice and you have to jump to new places so you can advance in a level. This rolling platform in level 1 that I activated is initially difficult to get onto until you figure out that it's recommended to press and hold L1 to grab the ledge and pull yourself up. Again, that's based on my control settings. This grab mechanic makes leaps of faith much easier to deal with as there's less risk involved. In later levels, you'll still encounter your fair share of difficult platforming. Here's one where you have to ascend a section that has a deadly rotating fan at the base of the shaft. That's what she said. Wait, what? This was especially difficult to navigate because the camera didn't want to play nice. While you mostly have control over the camera's view, it's not exactly perfect. This section was easier when I tried to just jump and avoid the wall jump mechanics. There are some platforming parts in the levels where Major will spend a good portion of time climbing to a specific spot, then missing a jump, then climbing back to that same spot, rinse, recycle, repeat. Despite never being in situations where I needed to jump backwards, I'm unsure why this would be included as a feature. I mean, during combat, that's one thing because you could do a backwards flip, but maybe I'm just completely failing at the controls. I don't know, I feel like I shouldn't have to work this hard to platform. You'll bounce back and forth between missions with Major and missions with Bato. There's a total of 12 missions that you'll take on, with levels lasting anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes on average. Bato's missions were a lot friendlier to control, as I I mentioned earlier, involving a lot more action and a lot less platforming. There's these snipers in some of Major's levels that can take you out with one hit, but there's ways to get around them, such as hacking. Sometimes you'll hit a spot in the game where you cannot get past without hacking something. In Major's first level, she has to hack a sniper so she can use him to kill other snipers. In Bato's level, you have to hack another robot who's much larger to take out turrets. There's many more examples, but these are just a few. To hack someone, they'll usually have a bluish triangle cursor on them. Pressing X enables a sort of minigame where you've got to press X again at the right time to line the spinning gears up between the grooves. I didn't really feel like there was a challenge here, as the gears often spin too fast for you to legitimately do anything beyond mashing the X button. And since you're timed, if you run out of time, you get kicked out of the enemy's cyberbrain, forcing you to press X again to try to hack. The more you press X to potentially line them up, the faster the timer goes down. If you mess up, you can re-hack as much as you want, but sometimes you'll spend a few minutes on the harder ones. While I enjoyed most of the soundtrack, it doesn't always line up with what's going on in-game. There's a ton of really thick beats layered on top of frantic percussion, and I really loved these moments in the soundtrack, particularly in the later stages of the game. But then there's levels that have this music that seems less drum and bass and more ambient, and normally I wouldn't have a problem with this, but when you're being chased by a deadly helicopter, it's hardly the time for a more subdued track. Visually, this game is on point with the series. There's a lot of gray, black, brown, as well as dark blue and purplish tones here, which fit very well with the atmosphere of the series. I thought Major and Bato were pretty well animated, though the cutscenes I was less impressed with. Transitioning anime into standard CG instead of cel shading or more traditional 2D animated cutscenes is always a chore. And while the CG cutscenes here are hit or miss regarding accuracy, they capture the feel and essence of the characters quite well overall. I felt like Major's running animation, as well as when she pulls herself up, actually really jived well with the visual aesthetics of the manga. Most enemies you'll face off against are killer machines, turrets, soldiers, or giant mechs. Not every enemy is hackable, which is a real letdown, as it would have been a strong selling point and allowed an additional method of attack. Speaking of attacks, Major and Bato can switch back and forth between two guns at a time. There's tons of different weapons such as semi-automatic machine guns, shotguns, rifles, and rocket launchers. There's supposedly more weapons unlockable if you go through the game a second time through, where you'll be allowed to collect paper fans. Supposedly the count was dramatically increased as compared to the Japanese version of the game. There's 7 different difficulty modes, but only the first 3 really matter, as the others are just masochistic challenges. The game has a mission where you actually fight with the Tachikoma tank, similar to the PlayStation 1 Ghost in the Shell game. However, controlling this tank definitely feels less fluid. It still handles well, but all of the gravity and wall crawling aspects are completely stripped from the experience. The sub-weapons are a whole different topic, with the square button cycling through a melee attack, grenades, electro bombs, and a slow-motion power-up. The item drops seem to be static though, in the sense that you'll come across a camouflage power-up at a specific point in the game. These are kind of spread out, but there's not a lot of them. I thought it was a nice touch for the game to switch gears and allow you to infiltrate without raising any alarms, but the stealth gameplay should have been an option during the entire game, in my opinion. With that said though, what would stop anyone from going through the entire game with the camouflage on? So I kind of see it both ways.
With this much humidity, optical camouflage is pointless. This is the Major, now carrying out mission.
I'll come give you a lift when I'm done with my little errand.
You will, huh? I'll be waiting with low expectations.
Okay.
What?
I'm gonna tell you all about my latest movie, Ghost in the Shell. Here goes. In Ghost in the Shell, I'm this girl who's in Japan,
Right.
and I meet this man
Okay, still accurate.
who's played by Bill Murray.
No, that's lost in translation.
And I'm a cyborg. Oh, whoopsie. Just another movie that I was in. My bad.
The missions have a decent amount of variety, but most are infiltration-style combat action. Some involve hacking robots, then manipulating them to get where you want to go, or help you access a new part of a level. I really wanted to see more of these, as they were innovative and exciting to play. Most of Bato's levels are standard get-to-the-end action romps, and these I felt were the most successful here. Major's missions put too much focus on the platforming mechanics that, had they been less awkward to control, would have bumped a game like this into the must-have category. So, while Ghost in the Shell standalone complex succeeds at being an engaging, enjoyable title, it struggles with marred jumping patterns that are frustrating to handle. Definitely recommended for Ghost in the Shell fans. For everyone else, check it out. And if you want more Ghost in the Shell action with the standalone complex series, there is a PlayStation Portable game that often gets mistaken as a port of this game, but it's actually a sequel, and it's first person. Developed by G artists and released for the PlayStation Portable in 2005, this game allows you to control multiple characters from Section 9, including the Major, Bato, Togasa, and Saito, and you can also jump inside a Tachikoma tank as well. It's similar to games like Coded Arms, for example. So, hey, more Ghost in the Shell? Don't mind if I do.
You don't even know your own movie.
Oh no, you've totally succeeded at besting me!
Okay, but where's the analog kid?
Why, I'm right here! Boy, that was fun! She's a real hoot, isn't she?
No.
Well, I've had my fill of you. I guess it's time to go.
But wait, what about my game?
Hey, look over there. It's the Major, and she's covered in buttered popcorn.
Oh, where?
Later, loser.
I'll get you for this next time, analog kid.
Scarlett
Next
Johansson
time.
Thank you to the following patrons. Your support means the world to me.
Okay, let me tell you about Ghost in the Shell.
Why
for
won't
real
you
now.
just go
It all
away?
starts with this guy named Steve Rogers. And he's like an Avenger, right? But there's also this guy named the Hulk, and I kind of like him. He's big and green, and I play the Major, aka the Black Widow. And I'm a cyborg.
No,
and
whoa,
I'm
quick,
so
quick.
pretty.
Turn it off,
And I
turn it
wear
off. Go
high
to another
heels,
channel.
and I kick
Go
people's
click a video
butts.
on that side. Just go.
And
Go,
I don't-
quick,
it's
now.
okay.
Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Consider subscribing to the channel, and also check out these reviews listed here. As always, thanks for watching.